Well, the best thing the government often can do is just get out of the way and let business invest. And defence is one of those areas. Innovation by private industry often creates better and cheaper outcomes than the Australian Defence Forces can. Well, today, one defence technology fund, Beaton's own venture partners, closed its first round of funding. It's the brainchild of its lead investor, Steve Baxter, known for his appearances on the television program Shark Tank, and also formerly Queensland chief entrepreneur. He joins me now from our Sydney studio. Always good to chat to you, Steve. Just explain, in that very large brain that you have got, what was the inspiration for this fund?
Thanks very much, Ross. The inspiration is literally the amount of innovation we see, I suppose, in the Australian defence sector all the time. So lots of sovereign companies, developing some great capability. But essentially, Beaton's own is almost an ESG arbitrage fund. We specialise in the hard edge of defence, things that soldiers, sailors and airmen actually need to use, and we hope they don't need to do their ultimate jobs. This doesn't attract a lot of investment capital. So essentially, where there's a lot of demand, the world's moving from 2 and 3% defence budgets to closer to 5%, and there's irrational investors investors are irrationally wary about it. That creates a great buy-side opportunity with respect to this. So we're very much looking at defence technology as an ESG arbitrage.
Okay, so we've seen some great innovation come from Australia already in defence. Drone Shield is one. You can see some of the ships that Australia makes through Austral. You can see the Bushmaster's another great example. There's plenty of other examples on top of those. So is it you trying to back those organisations that are really trying to create those innovations that are sold not just here in Australia, but around the world potentially?
Well, ultimately, we'll back Australian companies that don't have their eye on the Australian market. The Australian defence market's a US $32 billion defence budget. The US spends closer to $900 billion, which is a 30x differential for only a 15x population difference. So they spend a lot more on defence. They're also faster buyers. So there's 200, according to the head of the DIU in the US, there's 265 organisations in the US DoD that can purchase without a tender. Now that's gold. So a lot of the objections we have to people investing in defence is that there's one big complex customer. No, there's not. There's actually 38 countries in the allied world, but just in the US alone, there's potentially 265 easier, and that's not easy, but easier customers, and they're the ones we target.
Okay, so does Australia, having right now a very weak dollar, the fact that we've got all of this innovation and all of these universities that produce very smart graduates, and also we've got a history of making military breakthroughs, does that actually help you be able to target the areas you want to buy into, or in those investments you want to buy into?
Look, there's a bunch of things out there that are currently assisting the investment thesis here. There's a lot of tailwinds in this space. There's a large amount of global uncertainty out there. You have a new US government that's very keen to see allies spend a lot more on defence than they currently are. And there's talk of at least 5%, which would be a massive increase if they pulled it off. So there's lots of reasons out there. We do primarily have a pretty good innovation base, given the tax incentives here for innovation, the R&D tax incentives and other just pretty generous state and federal schemes. It's a great place to develop tech. The problem with the Australian Defence Force is these innovations tend to fall into that classic valley of death, although in defence it's more a chasm of death because nothing gets out of a chasm. So at Beaton's own, we take these great innovations and this great capability and we fund it to get into the US market. Our entire operation is orientated around getting great Australian capability into the US.
And isn't it odd that maybe the Australian Defence Force would actually buy it back if it is actually developed and created in the United States, as you talk about?
Yeah, it's a funny sort of saying that the easiest way to get an Australian soldier, sailor, airman using your thing is to go to the US, come back with a funny accent and sell it then. It's not actually not that funny a comment. It's actually terrible. We shouldn't. Whilst it's a joke, it's actually true. I hope that will change. I don't think I can change the way the ADF procure material. I hope I can show a better way. But my primary goal is to return money for the LPs who have entrusted us with their capital. As we've found 350 odd opportunities valued at about $320 million. Not all are investable, but all touch our mandate somehow. So there's no end of opportunity. It's up to us to find the best ones, and then the best ones that we can get, I suppose, successful in the US.
Indeed. Steve Baxter, great to have you on the program as always. Many thanks for your time.